Today we'll be talking, among other topics, about the lottery that became the EES, the precautions you should take against increasingly sophisticated scams related to hotel reservations, the new way to pay for your trips on the Madrid metro, what might happen to travel plans due to the war in Iran, the latest news on how Lisbon's funiculars are operating, and the expected completion date for the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. We've also included an invitation to visit Spain that's still free of tourist crowds. Hola, ¿qué tal? Welcome to a channel made by two humans who live in Spain and who spend an absurd amount of time traveling through the Iberian Peninsula, so you don't have to do it blindly. And welcome also to the June episode with answers to our followers' questions and news from the world of travel. We'd like to take this opportunity to confirm that the next Q&A video will air on the first Sunday in July. If you have any questions for that video, go ahead and ask now. Let's start with some news from the world of travel. And once again, we need to talk about the EES. We've been getting constant feedback from our followers across all three channels, and the pattern is very clear: total unpredictability. Some people breezed through security with no problems at all, others found the machines turned off and had to go through manual screening, and still others waited in line for 2 hours. It's a real game of Russian roulette when it should not be. We had read a lot of criticism about the EES while it was still in the testing phase. Personally, we didn't buy into that. We don't think it's fair to assess a system while it is being tested. The testing phases are precisely for that, to test what works and what doesn't. But now that the testing stage is over, we can definitely say that the EES is not working as it should. And it's creating trouble at airports across Europe, which ends up impacting travelers' lives, especially those who have to catch a connecting flight. There was plenty of time to prepare everything, and it is clear that the authorities didn't do their homework, and travelers are the ones paying the price. We'll keep monitoring feedback from our followers so we can share it with you, but the most important advice remains the same. If you don't have a European Union passport, be careful if you're taking a connecting flight and have to complete the EES upon arrival in Europe. Also be careful with Lisbon Airport, which always seems to be in the news with some crazy story. YouTube showed us a video this week discussing the launch of ETIAS that we couldn't help but watch because of the surprise it caused. It was yet another of those videos based on speculation with no concrete information. For now, for those interested in the subject, there is no official confirmation regarding the date when it will become mandatory. Given the success of the EES implementation, which is the foundation of ETIAS, we wouldn't be surprised, as we've mentioned several times before, if the European Union were to delay ETIAS again. But then again, we wouldn't rule out the European Union taking an in for a penny, in for a pound approach. The only thing we can say is that any content creator who mentions dates for the introduction of ETIAS is speculating, and clickbait and speculation are not something we like to cultivate here. Here's some news that will please some people. Starting now, you can pay for your trips on the Madrid metro at the barrier using a contactless bank card. Your smartphone works too. A single card can be used to pay for multiple people's trips. It must be tapped against the reader once for each person traveling with you. You need to validate your card both when entering and when exiting so the system can calculate the correct fare. Not all barriers accept this payment method, but the metro has announced that you will find at least 2 barriers at each station equipped for this payment option. During the initial phase, you will pay a promotional price of €1.50. Later, you will pay the full fare. It is an option for those who will take few trips or for whom saving money isn't a concern. With a multi-card loaded with a 10-trip Metrobus pass, you will pay much less for your tickets. And yes, it can be used on the airport metro. The system will automatically calculate the fare and include the airport surcharge in the total. Now for a very important topic, scam attempts linked to hotel reservations made through platforms like Booking.com, Hotels.com and similar sites. Data breaches on these platforms are commonplace, and the transparency with which we are informed leaves much to be desired. But it is a fact that criminals are obtaining data from actual hotel reservations. It happened to us twice last month. We received 2 messages, one via email and the other via WhatsApp, stating that to confirm our hotel reservation and avoid losing it, we needed to click on a provided link to confirm the dates and payment method. It is a sophisticated scam. The scammers have your booking details, the hotel name, dates, and your own name. You don't suspect a thing. And to ensure you fall for it, they even add a message like you have 48 hours to avoid losing your reservation. Be very careful. There must be a lot of people falling for these scams. If the hotel needs to contact you, it will do so through the platform where you made the reservation. And even within that platform, scam attempts can still happen. If in doubt, look up the hotel's email address and write to them directly. If you provided your card details when making the reservation, there is no reason to do so again. Always be wary if someone asks you to confirm your card details. Let's look at Iran now. Several people have asked about the implications of the war for travel in the coming months. It's very difficult to answer. We want to steer clear of the doomsday scenarios that are popping up everywhere. Even so, the answer is difficult because it depends on how the conflict unfolds, which is completely unpredictable. What we do know, the supply of aviation fuel in Spain and Portugal is guaranteed for now. Portugal is not dependent on Gulf oil because it imports a lot from Brazil and Algeria. And Spain has an ace up its sleeve, a refinery infrastructure that allows it, at the touch of a button, almost literally, to switch to producing aviation fuel instead of gasoline, which is what Spain has been doing for the last few weeks. If you're traveling to Spain or Portugal and are thinking of booking a domestic flight, you won't be stranded due to lack of fuel. In the rest of Europe, however, the situation is different, and there are airlines cancelling flights due to the excessive increase in aviation fuel prices. In such a situation of uncertainty, the only solid advice we can give is this. If you are planning to book flights or accommodations for the coming months, and while the conflict in the Gulf remains unresolved, make sure you book services that can be cancelled at no cost to you. We have some not so good news from Lisbon. We've mentioned in previous episodes how following the accident involving the Gloria funicular in 2025, Lisbon's funicular service was suspended. We just returned from another visit to Lisbon and had the chance to speak with an employee of Carris, the company responsible for operating the funiculars. It was an informal conversation, and the impression we got is that it will be a very, very long time before the funiculars are back in operation. We're not talking about weeks, we are not talking about months, we're talking about a very long time. We hope we are wrong in this assessment. The Pope is about to arrive in Barcelona, and among other things, he will inaugurate the Tower of Jesus Christ, the tallest structure in the Sagrada Familia. There's been a lot of media coverage, and just a few days ago, we heard the director of the Sagrada Familia estimate when the project might be completed. He stated that, being optimistic and assuming everything goes well, we're looking at another 10 years of construction. That's because finishing the temple's main facade would require an urban development project as massive as it is controversial. But the interior of the temple is almost ready, and we can assure you that a visit, even with the scaffolding and cranes on the outside, is wonderful. The August 12th eclipse is fast approaching, and we've already chosen the spot where we will watch it near home. We also know the sun's elevation above the horizon at the moment of the eclipse, which is what we are showing you in the images now. Many of our followers have told us they are coming to Spain to witness the eclipse. A helpful tip: arrive a day early to find a good viewing spot. And remember that if possible, it's a good idea to avoid driving. Traffic gridlock on the roads before and after the eclipse is a very real possibility. 2 days ago, a reader told us that following our advice, he left a 2.5-hour gap between his flight's arrival at Madrid airport and his train's departure from Atocha railway station. And he missed the train. The airport was packed with people, the taxi line was huge, and he did not make it. Well, dear friend, you certainly did not follow our advice. You may have even seen it on some other channel. But as we've repeated so many times, and stopped doing so to avoid boring our regular followers, for a smooth flight to train connection in Madrid, we always recommend leaving a buffer of at least 4 hours. We want to make that clear once again. And before we get to the answers, here's an invitation to include a less touristy side of Spain on your next trip. The unchecked growth of tourism in Spain is having a negative impact on the tourist experience in major cities, but there are still many parts of Spain where this damage isn't yet felt in a critical way. We just spent some time exploring Ordesa National Park with 2 dear American friends who always help us see Spain in a different light, and even in May we enjoyed many moments of peace and tranquility in one of Spain's most spectacular national parks. From our video archives, we've dug up the exact driving itinerary that takes you through this national park and many other wonderful parts of northern Aragon. Check it out. And let's start with the questions. First, the questions from channel members, which we address with special, more detailed attention. Remember that for the price of a cup of coffee, you can become a channel member, a way to support the work we do. Lucia wants to know where she can start looking for reliable Airbnb accommodations in Madrid. We are not sure where to start that search, I imagine, on the company's platform, the Airbnb website itself, but we know it's quite difficult to figure out what makes a good accommodation option and what doesn't. As we have explained many times before, we never stay at Airbnb in Spain or Portugal. If you care about your trip having the least possible impact on the cities you visit, don't use Airbnb, which is responsible for degrading the quality of life in the tourist cities where it operates. That Airbnb you are thinking of renting used to be a local resident's home not too long ago, and he was forced to leave and search for accommodation God knows where. If you want an apartment with a kitchen, there are plenty of apart hotels that offer a similar service without having a devastating impact on housing availability for city residents. Good luck with your search, and if you find something that interests you and want to know our opinion, just ask. Francisco Javier wants to know how to pay the airport surcharge to return to Madrid airport. Good question, especially since there's a flood of videos by content creators recommending that you buy the supplement, the surcharge to leave the airport, and the surcharge to return at the same time on the day of departure, even though a large notice on the screen warns that the supplement is only valid for the day of purchase. For the return trip, on the day you return to the airport, you'll need to go to a ticket machine at any station, insert your multi-card, and if you already have the ticket needed to travel to the airport, load only the airport surcharge onto it. Marcelo is thinking about taking a trip this year and wants to know our take on the war and security. Marcelo, I think we've already answered part of your question, but let's revisit it. As for security, as of today, the war in Iran hasn't had any tangible impact on the Iberian Peninsula. As for other consequences, such as shortages and fuel scarcity, as we discussed earlier, these could become a massive problem if the war drags on too long. If you are planning to visit, make sure all your reservations are refundable. Everything surrounding that war and US policy is so fraught with uncertainty that trying to guess what might happen seems like an impossible task to us. Andres is planning an 11-day trip to Madrid and wanted to know how much cash we recommend he bring. He also wanted to know if we could go over the options for withdrawing cash from ATMs that don't charge a high service fee. Andres, you've been to Spain before, and as you've probably seen on previous trips, if you are visiting urban Spain, you rarely need cash. You can get by just fine with bank cards, including Apple Pay and Google Pay. You might want to bring about €100 to cover any unexpected expenses or places that don't accept card payments. As for ATMs, it's impossible to compile the list you're asking for because it depends not only on the ATMs themselves, but also on your bank and your card. Cross-referencing all that information would result in an encyclopedia we're not equipped to produce. But the basic advice is always to check the information displayed on the ATM screen and avoid Euronet ATMs at all costs. Also, ask your bank and your card issuer what fees they will charge you when you withdraw money and which ATM networks you can use for free. Best regards. Jan will be in Barcelona during the La Mercè festival and wants to know how to make the most of it. Jan, the Fiestas de la Mercè are Barcelona's biggest local celebration and is very dear to the hearts of Barcelona residents. The vast majority of tourists you will encounter in Barcelona during that time don't even know it's happening. That's why it doesn't attract more tourists than usual to the city. The program is very diverse, featuring many street events, activities for children, music concerts, the wonderful Castellers, we would not miss them, the human towers, and it all culminates in a grand fireworks and music show at Montjuic Park. This year's festival program hasn't been published yet, but we'll leave a link in the first comment below the video to the Barcelona City Council website where you can check it as soon as it is available. That would be our advice. What we usually do is when the program comes out, take a close look and begin marking the things we would like to see. Best regards. And now the questions from non-channel members. Marcelo wants to know how to prove the entitlement to a 23-kilogram suitcase when purchasing tickets. And to be honest, we are not entirely sure what the question is asking. We assume that he's referring to high-speed train tickets. Depending on the carrier, on the operator, that suitcase is included in the ticket price. We have a recent video explaining the luggage policies. See the link below. Galvan has a 1-hour layover from Madrid to Barcelona with Iberia and wants to know what the airline's liability is in the event of a missed connection due to the EES, given that the airline imposes such a short layover. Galvan, a 1-hour connection in Madrid was suicide mission before the EES and now even more so. But the most important part of your question is where you mentioned the airline's imposition. In reality, the airline does not impose anything. You, the consumer, are the one who chooses that connection. It is vital to understand that no airline, even if it offers them, forces you to buy any specific connection. You are the one who chooses. We travel extensively across 5 continents and are tired of seeing financially advantageous connections that we don't even consider buying because of the short layover time. The responsibility for purchasing a safe connection lies with the traveler based on their risk tolerance. Regarding the airline's responsibility, in the case of segments issued as part of the same ticket, if you miss your connection, the airline will rebook you on the first available flight. Jose Carlos wants to know if we recommend including Coca Castle on a day trip to Segovia and how to get there. The castle, fantastic castle, is 60 kilometers from Segovia. You can get there by car or by bus. And no, we would never include it on a day trip to Segovia. We'd rather go to La Granja de San Ildefonso, which is much closer, and even so, we don't think you have enough time for either of them on a day trip. This user says that some people claim you don't need to provide proof of accommodation for every day of your trip when going through immigration. That's again the somebody told me that, Spanish immigration officials may ask you to provide proof of where you will be staying for the entire duration of your stay in the country. Failing to meet an immigration requirement could result in your entry being denied. John wants to know if there's a way to check whether he's already registered with the EES. He says he went through the machines, had his fingerprints scanned, but there was no specific confirmation that he had registered. John, we weren't there with you to see what you did, but if you completed the registration process on the machine and the machine told you to proceed, to go ahead, that means you have completed the registration. Carol is asking us about tour operators for guided tours of Spain. We don't have any experience with that, so we cannot recommend any companies. We always travel around Spain on our own, which we find is the easiest way to enjoy the country. Spain is one of the easiest countries in the world to travel through on your own. Gabriela knows that we recommend allowing 4 hours. Gabriela knows, she knows, 4 hours between a flight's scheduled arrival time and a train's departure time. And she wants to know if a shorter time frame is risky. Well, we've been asked similar questions many times. We offer this recommendation for those who want a stress-free connection where the risk of missing the connection is minimized, but only you know your own risk tolerance and whether you are willing to take on more risk with a shorter connection. You are in charge of your trip and decide whether to follow our advice or not. Now, with the EES, and if you don't have an European Union passport, we recommend adding extra time to that safety buffer just in case. A shorter time is doable. Probably it is. We made that once. We made a flight connection at Doha. It was a flight connection of 10 minutes. That's because of a delay in the arrival of our first flight. Does that mean we would buy a 10-minute connection in the future? Never, ever. So we'll have to distinguish between what's feasible and what buys you peace of mind. And we are after peace of mind. Annette has a flight at 6 a.m. and is planning to arrive in Madrid from Burgos the day before at 7 p.m. She wants to know if it's worth staying at a hotel in Madrid, considering she'll have to check out at 2:30 a.m. Arriving in Madrid the day before is perfect, but those early morning flights are a nightmare precisely because of the dilemma you are facing. If you don't sleep, you'll board the plane completely exhausted. If you do sleep, you'll pay for an expensive night at a hotel just to get up at the crack of dawn and probably board the plane very tired. We avoid those departure times at all costs because they are a nightmare. The decision to stay in a hotel or not is very personal. Just keep in mind that if you don't, Madrid airport isn't exactly a cozy place to spend so many hours in the early morning. Eliana wants to know which mode of transportation is best for traveling from Seville to Granada, train or bus. Eliana, both are perfectly fine options, just choose the one that best fits your budget and the available timings. You already know we are on Team Train here, so whenever possible we hop on board a train. Diego is planning to visit Granada in October and wants to know if it's enough to buy tickets for the Alhambra 3 months in advance. Diego, unless there is a specific event taking place in the Alhambra on that date, it should be enough. But our advice is always the same. First, you buy your tickets to the Alhambra, then you buy transportation and book accommodation. Peter wants to know if non-resident seniors get discounts on Madrid public transport. He also wants to know if the Tarjeta Dorada can be purchased by tourists and if he can do so at Madrid airport. Peter, if you are not a Madrid resident, you won't get any discounts on the public transport tickets. Tarjeta Dorada, the golden card issued by Renfe, can be bought by tourists. For those unfamiliar, it is a discount card for travel in Renfe trains. We suspect it can be bought at Renfe's counter at T4 or Madrid airport, but are not absolutely sure about it. However, we have always advised to purchase your train tickets as far in advance as possible. You might buy a ticket for 20 euros without the Tarjeta Dorada, and if you wait till you reach Madrid and have your Tarjeta Dorada, that very same ticket could cost 100 or more. The Tarjeta Dorada is a good deal for those coming to Spain again and again. You will buy it on your first visit and use it from the second visit onwards. Jorge wants to know if you can pay with cash at gas stations. He also wants recommendations for travel insurance and eSIMs. At some self-service gas stations, it might not be possible to pay with cash at certain times, like when they run out of bills to give change. But in general, it should be possible. At staffed gas stations, you can always pay with cash. Check out the video below on how to use gas stations in Spain. And be sure to check out the several videos with recommendations we've already posted about eSIMs, including discount codes to help you save money. We'll put those discount codes below the video as well. We cannot provide recommendations on travel insurance because they depend on the options available in your country, and we don't have control over what's being sold and under what conditions in all the countries where our followers live. Armindo blames us for falling in love with Spain. He is familiar with our road trip through the Pueblos Blancos in Andalusia and would like to know whether we are planning to do a similar series in the north of Spain. Hello Armindo, we accept the guilt. We actually have 2 road trips in the north of Spain. The first one, we mentioned it at the beginning of the video, through the mountains of Aragon, and the other one is through the Rioja region. And we would love to do more road trips in the Basque Country, Cantabria, Asturias and Galicia. The problem is time. We are struggling to keep the 3 channels running, and developing a road trip demands a considerable investment. Our road trip videos are not among the most watched videos in the channel, so we need to go slow with them. Before the end of the year, we intend to add the Ruta del Quijote, a road trip through Don Quixote lands. Hope we can make it. Marge is confused by the issue of financial proof required by immigration. She even consulted the Spanish consulate near her home, but their advice was unhelpful since they replied that copies of bank statements or emails are not accepted. Marge, as we have said before, we are not more of an authority on the topic than a Spanish consulate, but their advice is sound. No copies are accepted. You need the original documents. Copies are easy to forge. A statement with a stamp of your bank should be accepted. That poses an issue for those with accounts on online banks, but I'm afraid that's all the help we can give on the topic. Your questions should be addressed to the authorities. We don't know any more than them. And with March, we wrap up this month's Q&A. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. And a special shout out to all the followers we met during our trips in May. Every encounter was an outpouring of warmth that always makes us so happy. Warmest wishes to Vancouver, Canada, the US, Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. We hope to continue meeting many more followers on our upcoming trips. Make sure you come to say hi. We will be delighted to meet you. See you next week.